bots, Siri integration with WebSockets.
Can we get to that from the URL that's up the top?
No, because it's not actually deployed. Actually, no, it's not on that node. I've got it on a different node. But it is deployed to the server. But what I can do is we can give you the actual package so you can deploy it to your own CCS, ACCS. Obviously, it also gives you the low-level documentation, the SDKs. Yeah, we're trying to actually work out how we make this public, because it's shipped with all the Docker images, but it's not shipped in the production image.
Okay.
And no one can explain why. But anyway. Okay, so let me just do my shoelaces up, and we'll get into the next section, which...
The saddest day was they announced 100 GB games for Xbox. I'm like, I will not buy a single game in Australia. It will take forever to download on an ADSL connection.
Well, a friend of mine has 1 gigabit upload.
Yeah, I had 1 GB up and down. $49.
So I mean, I could, to be honest, I never signed up for fibre. One, because the funny thing is, as everyone on the rest of the building went off cable, my bandwidth went through the roof. So there was no requirement. I mean, I'm getting 200 megabit anyway over cable, or about 160 plus. I don't need fibre because everyone else has gone fibre. Okay, so let's get into it again. Mind you, I was watching a documentary, was that last night? Apparently the fastest internet, well, South Korea still has the fastest internet, but the fastest internet in Europe is Estonia.
Yeah. They've got their own cryptocurrency as well, and digital ID for the government.
I didn't realise that Skype came from Estonia.
Yep,
I thought it came from Denmark, but
no, Estonia.
Okay, so where are we? So let's get into. So we started off with the various components. What we now want to look at is things like how you actually expose that in your application. So this is getting into sort of value expressions. So as I said, when we look at the variable, we treat the variable as a property of or slot in the state. So as I said, we can base those on primitives or ultimately entity type. So again, the way we expose it looks like an EL, but in fact it's actually a free marker. So in this case, size.value is obviously the current value of the size variable. Account type.value. Now, if I want to do that uppercase, I can simply put a question mark and the name of the free marker method, and it'll apply it to that output. So when we want to, so the first and important variable is NLP result. That's the output of the NLP engine. So that's going to give us things like the intent. It gives us any entities that are inside that utterance, as well as the query. So if I say NLP result.query or .value.query, that returns the actual string that was the utterance. So that NLP is effectively a JSON array object that gives us all the NLP functionality that comes out of the intent engine. So if I want to get the entities out of that, what I can do is simply reference it. So, excuse me, In this case, if I've got my utterance, then it's going to load that and load the whole output from the NLP into our value that is of type NLP result. And then I can just simply drill into that, and in this case, I've got a currency entity, I've got an account type entity, another account type entity, which is ultimately a from and true in a transfer. And how do we indicate from and to? Origin and destination? Derived entities. So a derived entity says anything with from in front of it is an origin, anything with to in front of it is a destination. So if I'm transferring money, even though they're both account types, I know which one I'm talking about. Likewise, if we're slotting, remember I was saying, if I've already filled a slot, if I've already answered a question, there's no point asking it. So anytime the slot is filled, i.e. the variable that's referenced inside a state is actually already set, then it'll automatically jump over that state. Now there are times when you want to use that state regardless, so you have to reset the variable before you call it. But generally, the advantage is if I've already answered the question, don't ask me it. So that's the concept of slotting. Now, to be honest, when we first came out with the product, most of the vendors out there didn't do slotting. And if you look at the likes of Microsoft or IBM, you have to effectively code the slots. So in the case of, say, Watson, slotting is done through a JSON object. Whereas, same with Microsoft, you have to code a variable and keep track of it yourself. Google does do slotting, but again, only for entities. So this is something that inherently differentiates us, but obviously it's a good idea, so people are actually getting into the concepts now. But we're still the one that basically do this automatic jump over thing declaratively. So for example here, I want to transfer money to my savings account. So in that case, we've already defined an account type of savings. So it's going to first of all, work out what the intent is. So the intent is balances. So it's going to jump to the labeled component, start balances. So it jumps down here. So in this case, actually that arrow is wrong. So I mean, that's a transfer, so there's going to be transactions. It's going to jump to start transactions. And the first thing it does is say, is there an account type referenced inside my NLP output? So again, value, entity match, account type. And then obviously array 0. So in this case, we know that there's only one. Now, if we come to the second one, which is for which account, if I say I want to transfer money to my savings account, there's no point showing me the list of the accounts. So what it's going to do is, because up here we copied the variable into the account type variable, you can see that these both share the account type variable. So once it comes down to here, it's like, oh, account type's already filled, I'll just skip over that and go straight to the next state. So it makes it very easy because we're relying on the fact that you've defined the variable and loaded the variable to say where I go, like skip over it if the variable's set. So in this case, because it's already set this, it's jumped down to the output, which in this case is just simply printing out no worries. So slots, as I said, think of them as variables, because in reality that's what they are. So, but the difference being is our variables can handle more than just entities. They can hold any variable type, or any string that you want to, or number that you want to put in there. Now, one of the hardest things to do in particularly procedural environments is go off topic. Remember, what's the function of a chatbot? The function of a chatbot is to mimic human speech and to find the question. The problem is, when we're talking to each other, we have a habit of going off topic. What you're looking at is non sequitur or non-linear speech. And if I'm in if then else, it's very hard to allow me to go off completely off topic and come back again. So what you're looking at here, because it's a finite state machine, we're able to have ultimately nested intents. So I can be halfway through a process, ask a totally different question, and then come back to the original one and keep going. Now that's actually really hard to do in a lot of products. So the idea is, excuse me, I want to send, say, $50 to mum. So the initial intent is obviously transfer. So that sets up the state to where we are. Then I'm going to ask, okay, where's the money coming from? Now I've gone off topic and said, how much money do I have? In this case, in my checking account. We answer that question. Oh, excuse me.
God bless you.
Thank you. The wonders of being on a long night flights with 400 of your favourite
Let's say
friends.
this is a state machine problem you've ended up in a little.
Okay, so you can see that this one here is off topic. We've answered the question and then we get to keep going. And the way we do that is through nesting intents. So even though in the example you've got the system.intent at the top, you can have as many system.intents as you like in an application, in your bot. So as I go through a conversation flow, I can do another system.intent at a particular point, find out the NLP for that, and process it independently. And because it's a state machine and you've got context, I can keep the original context, go and do something else, and then come back to the original context without necessarily having to code it all into the system. This is actually, particularly if you're dealing with financial institutions, this was one of the features that won over some of the banks because they'd been trying to do it in other products and they were really struggling. And we showed them this very simple, I want to pay the babysitter, where's the money coming from? Savings account. Oh, by the way, how much do I actually have? Oh, okay, yeah, pay $50 and have it go through that way. That, bizarrely enough, is actually very hard to do procedurally. Okay, so that's that one. So what we can do, lab 3. That should be enough to give you going on lab 3, and then, as I said, tomorrow we'll do components, as in custom components. We'll do interactives. We'll do language, and if we've got enough time, we might do some sort of additional, more advanced stuff.
Like integrating forms or?
Yeah, that's the interactives. And we'll do web channels and Facebook. Yeah.
Can you do the lab at home?
You can. This is all on the cloud, so
Yeah.
he's just using an excuse so he can run off and beat the traffic.
Yes, that's important. I don't want to spend.
So yeah, so if you want to do lab 3 at home, or 4 or 5 or whatever, you're more than welcome. So what will happen is, to be honest, you'll keep these. Because I'm running another course on Monday in Sydney. I normally give people like a week to do things, but I'm going to have to reset all the passwords and reset the environments over the weekend. So basically you've got this until, say, Saturday night. But as I said, I'll give you some more exercises you can do as well if you want. But as I said, yeah, feel free to bit more tonight if you want.
Beating the traffic is important. I don't want to spend 1.5 hour like I did in the morning in the in the car.
Well, in Spain, we've one of the firms has actually integrated the bot into CarPlay. So,
CarPlay, what does it do?
bizarrely enough, is so you could, as you're driving in your BMW and Mercedes, you can sit there and ask the car how much money you've got and you want to transfer stuff. It's like, why I'd do that in the car anyway, I'm not sure. But
Just to remind yourself how much you're spending on financing that car that's driving at 2 miles an hour down the road.
And
so,
Google has integrated
Hey
their
Siri,
voice
how much
assistant
is
in
this
Google
car
Maps,
cost?
which I can use to call people.
yeah, so I mean, it is interesting that CarPlay and what's the
Android Auto.
yeah.
Android Auto.
So as I said, you can. Well, tomorrow we'll start off again after lab 3. So if you want to do that at home, fine. Any other questions before the? Is this the sort of thing you were expecting?
Yeah.
Yeah, better than what I was expecting.
No, he says.
No, it's better than what I was expecting.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's a compliment or a damning praise of our other training.
It's a compliment and also an indictment on our integration training. So, we can swap stories after.
Okay.
Good one. It's just Oracle.
And it's a long way back to the office.
Absolutely. Like oh, mate. We don't hand cards out anymore.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll send you a.
But
Like connect with me on LinkedIn.
But 2 things, sign up, if you haven't already signed up for a trial account, just so you can have and when you do, sign up for